Barack Obama recommends 6 books inspired by Africa to read this summer. Barack Obama will be heading to Kenya and South Africa for the first time since he left office in 2016. Before going for his trip, the former U.S. president suggested 6 books for a good summer read. Barack Obama, who is all set to take off for his trip to Africa, revealed he will be visiting the place for the first time since he left office in 2016. Inspired by his expedition, he recommended a list of 6 books for summer reading, 5 of which have been written by African writers. The former president posted the list on his Facebook page and called the books a part of Africa's extraordinary literary tradition. He wrote, "This week, I'm traveling to Africa for the first time since I left office, a continent of wonderful diversity, thriving culture, and remarkable stories. I was proud to visit sub-Saharan Africa more times than any other sitting president, and I'll return this week to visit Kenya and South Africa." In South Africa, the Obama Foundation will convene 200 extraordinary young leaders from across the continent, and I'll deliver a speech to mark the 100th anniversary of Nelson Mandela's birth. Kenya, of course, is the Obama ancestral home. I visited for the first time when I was in my 20s, and I was profoundly influenced by my experiences, a journey I wrote about in my first book, Dreams from My Father. Obama further wrote about how African literature has inspired him and recommended 6 books for book lovers. He wrote, "Over the years since, I've often drawn inspiration from Africa's extraordinary literary tradition. As I prepare for this trip, I wanted to share a list of books that I'd recommend for summer reading, including some from a number of Africa's best writers and thinkers, each of whom illuminate our world in powerful and unique ways. A true classic of world literature, this novel paints a picture of traditional society wrestling with the arrival of foreign influence, from Christian missionaries to British colonialism. A masterpiece that has inspired generations of writers in Nigeria, across Africa, and around the world," wrote Obama. Talking about the book, Obama said, "A chronicle of the events leading up to Kenya's independence, and a compelling story of how the transformative events of history weigh on individual lives and relationships. Want to make history and change the world?" Obama recommended this book for such people. He said, "Mandela's life was one of the epic stories of the 20th century. This definitive memoir traces the arc of his life from a small village to his years as a revolutionary, to his long imprisonment, and ultimately his ascension to unifying president, leader, and global icon. Essential reading for anyone who wants to understand history, and then go out and change it." From one of the world's great contemporary writers comes the story of 2 Nigerians making their way in the US and the UK, raising universal questions of race and belonging, the overseas experience for the African diaspora, and the search for identity and a home. A beautifully written memoir that skillfully balances a graceful guide through Libya's recent history with the author's dogged quest to find his father who disappeared in Gaddafi's prisons, wrote Obama. Written by Ben Rhodes, this book is about Obama's journey in the White House. It's true, Ben does not have African blood running through his veins. But few others so closely see the world through my eyes like he can. Ben's one of the few who've been with me since that first presidential campaign. His memoir is one of the smartest reflections I've seen as to how he approached foreign policy, and one of the most compelling stories I've seen about what it's actually like to serve the American people for 8 years in the White House. Have you read any of the books mentioned by Obama? Let us know in the comments section.